think I've been asked to say a few words about how apprenticeships can help support the technological development of future banking workforce. And it's really great to be here. Let me say a couple of words about the Institute, because I think it's got a very sort of all-encompassing name. It's actually got some quite narrowly defined responsibilities, and I'll just cover those now. Firstly, what we do is help the trailblazer groups, the employer trailblazer groups, to develop, approve and then maintain the apprenticeship standards, including making recommendations to ministers on what funding band those standards should receive. Secondly, we are responsible for quality assurance of all endpoint assessments through the process of external quality assurance. And then finally and latterly, we're responsible for developing and approving the content of the new T-levels and then their procurement and the contract management of them thereafter. Those are our three main functions. People attach all sorts of things to us. I often get prodded in the chest about the levy and other things. Don't look to me for the levy, it's the Treasury's business. I just help to provide the standards to let people use and spend their levy. I can see that both your sector broadly, banking in particular, and the Chartered Institute are enthusiastic about apprenticeship reforms, and I can see that from both the study that's been done and your engagement and involvement in developing standards. I think that's not only because you want to spend your levy, and clearly people do, but I do think it's more importantly about you're looking strategically at your talent management pipelines and you're seeing how apprenticeships can be a part of that, and I think that's the right approach. Those people who just want to spend their levy often end up wasting it. Your theme for today is technology in banking and looking to the future of the industry, and I'm here because of the important relationship between new technology and the skills needed to take advantage of it. There are currently 36 legal, finance and accounting apprenticeships. That's the route that within which you exist that are approved for delivery. And some of those will be familiar to those in the room. So, for instance, the Level 6 Financial Services Professional, Level 6 Banking Relationship Manager, and the Level 6 Senior Compliance and Risk Specialist, as well as the Level 4 Internal Audit Practitioner and the Level 2 and 3 Financial Services Apprenticeships. But there are only 2 in development, so there's a question mark. Is that right? Should there be more in development? I'll park that point for perhaps discussion in the forum. That might mean you've either got all the apprenticeships you need, or that there might still be gaps that you want to fill, but you haven't quite codified what those gaps are yet. And I'm not necessarily looking to expand the number of standards. And I would always urge people to look first at what standards exist already, because if you can use an existing standard, that's always easier. But if they don't meet your needs, then my message is you can always create a new apprenticeship or review and revise what's already there. We're doing this right now with 12 of the early digital standards in the first pilot of our statutory reviews. We're statutorily required to review the standards periodically. These 12 were chosen because of the rapidly evolving nature of this sector and the selection of the digital route in the first wave and probably second wave of T-levels. And also the need to revisit some of the early apprenticeship standards anyway, since when there have been significant improvements in our understanding of what best practice is. So having done that pilot, we'll be finishing that probably in the early spring, learn the lessons, and then we'll launch into probably another 3 routes in 2019. As new technology emerges within the banking industry and the skills needs of individuals and businesses emerge, you will inevitably create new job roles. In this case, the solution probably will be to create new apprenticeship standards that identify and define the knowledge, skills and behaviours required of that new occupation. Equally, when existing jobs change, all the skills required in them evolve. We will work with you to keep apprenticeship standards up to date and relevant. And I was talking to Simon this morning. Some of your standards are already coming back with suggestions on how you might update them and review them. And I think a sensible solution, as you're doing, is to bring them forward as a group. If there are 2 or 3 different levels in, let's say, in financial services, bring them all together so we can see how all 3 have changed to be updated. I know that banking is already utilising a broad range of different apprenticeships. So standards such as the level 3 and 4 software developer, there are 2 cybersecurity standards, a level 4 data analyst, and indeed a level 4 business analyst will probably be familiar to you, as well as the banking specific ones. And I suspect that Anthony Jenkins, who I think is talking to you by video later, he's also my chairman, will say a bit more about the technology and banking later. And I certainly understand the need and the desire to keep these standards up to date. So I've had a sneak preview at the report that Simon's about to launch. Had a look at that earlier, and I find myself agreeing with pretty much all of the recommendations that come out of that report. And when I looked at them, the need to review standards is recognised, and we absolutely welcome the involvement of professional bodies in this review process. And where we can align the interests of professional bodies and the apprenticeship, that's great, because that means that people are not only learning knowledge, skills and behaviour, they're getting professional status and qualification out of it as well, and that's where we want to be. I think that I do understand the frustration around how much data is published. I'm frustrated by it too. I think we have pretty unique access to all the data, and I can interrogate it, but because it's not my data, I can't publish it. Only the data owners can publish it. So I am pushing Department for Education in particular to give much greater granularity in the data they produce, because I think only then can you really drill into your own areas and understand what's going on. But if I look at the entire legal, finance and accounting route, where there have been around 15,000 starts on standards in the last 12 months, that's about just under 10% of all starts on all apprenticeships. The dominant apprenticeships tend to be the accounting ones, with the big accountancy firms featuring large in the companies who are employing those apprentices. There have been over 10,000 starts, so of that 15,000, 2/3, on a combination of the level 3 assistant accountant, the level 7 accountancy and taxation professional, and the level 4 professional accounting and taxation techniques. So the big four and the other big accounting firms have definitely got in on the front edge of this, and they're utilising those standards well. If you then look at the banking specific standards, so for example the level 2 and 3 financial services apprenticeships, seen about 2,200 starts on in that same 12 months. So I definitely think there's scope to increase the numbers and the scale of your use of apprenticeships. And as I said earlier on, I think there's also considerable scope for not looking just narrowly at the financial services apprenticeships, but looking right across the range to see where you can utilise apprenticeships in all areas of your business, really. So that's probably enough from me. I'm going to hand over now to Simon to introduce his paper ahead of the panel discussion. Sadly, I can't stay here for this panel discussion, but I will certainly sit down and listen while Simon introduces the report. Thank you very much.